So welcome to part two of how to build your own hammock. The next piece that we'll be getting into will actually be cutting out all the fabric and moving forward on that. So let's jump right in.
Alright, so basically what you see in front of you is our 4 yards of nylon, 1.6 ounce. The white line going across that's in front of us is actually our measuring tape. So when I got this is about 64 inches across. We're going to use every bit of our material on the side. We're going to hem up the sides. We don't have to do a lot of measurements. We're going to make this a pretty wide hammock. So we can lay a little bit deeper, a little higher angle, around 30 degrees, maybe a little bit more. That gives us a little bit more of a flat lay. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and measure down. I'm planning on making the actual length of my hammock about 10.5 feet. So just real roughly, so I'm not working with a lot of material that I don't have to, I'm going to come down and I'm going to measure that out from the top to the bottom. And like I said, I don't want it to be perfect because I'm hemming stuff, and if I were to measure this out perfectly from the beginning to the end, it wouldn't quite work out. So this is my first 60. I'm going to go down again, take my 60 again, and I'm gonna add about 6 on the end of that, so that'd be 126, I believe. The nice thing about the ripstop nylon is you have your little lines to follow that go through the material. What I was trying to decide is if I'm gonna follow a line or follow my existing material that's not quite square, and I think we're fine either way. A lot of this on the ends will become our channel for our support system. So. You can see I have my material up here. Now you're going to be working with a lot of material, and I tell you, it's not an easy thing to do when you're trying to get all this stuff to move around correctly and all of that. So I don't try to do a full wrap whenever I'm doing this. Sometimes people will double wrap their hem from the very beginning. I don't do that. I just go ahead and make the pass twice and go through and set my hem that way. It takes a little more thread to do it that way, but I think it ends up a little bit stronger, number one, and it looks really nice when you're done. So basically what I do is I'll just fold it over, and I don't know how far this fray is going. It's probably, going a decent amount, but what I'll do is I'll fold it over about a ½ inch or so, maybe a little more, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it again on top of itself, and then I'll just take a lighter and seal those seams on the end. Alright, so basically that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take about an inch, maybe a little less, and I'm going to actually slide this right in. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. I'm trying to manage this with the camera as well, but I'll just come in here, pull this through. Now it's important when you're working, make sure you have your strings pulled back in the back. Have this lined up at least for the first few feet. Now typically I would pin stuff off if it was a little more critical here. This isn't. So I'm not quite as worried about it. So the first thing I'm going to do is go through here, set this up, and I'm going to put my foot down on this. And what I try to do is, you'll see my foot, is I'll just line this up with the edge of my foot. So I always keep it the full width of my foot all the way down. It means I have to stop every once in a while and do a few things, but I'll try to keep it right there on that edge of the foot. Then I'll work and to get all of this after I get my foot down. Pull this out so it's even. I can work on it. I have a lot of material over here in my lap and on the floor. It's alright, we're just going to take it slow, and we're going to go through here step by step. Now, I'm not going to record this whole thing, but I'll show you the first pieces of it. Now, when I first started learning to do this, I used white thread on black nylon or a dark nylon so that I could even learn to get my line straight. It doesn't show up as much with a black nylon thread, but one of the reasons I did that was, like I said, for practice, and I could get feedback and I know how to do that stuff. So anyway, when you first start a stitch, anytime you're doing this, and this is something that I learned that really helps, you want to lock that stitch in. So basically what you want to do is you want to take a couple, and I'm going to slowly go forward, you'll see that. Then I'm going to go backwards a little bit. And all that does is lock the beginning of that stitch in. Now your machine will pull this through. All you're going to do is guide it, let your machine do all the work. It'll pull it through as it goes. Just slowly, don't get in a hurry. If you feel like something's getting uneven, you can always stop, readjust, fix it, and then go right back to what you were doing without any problems. That's pretty much done now. We have all of our hems on the sides, and we're starting to make our channels. So what I typically do is one of the nice things with the ripstop is that you can actually count squares so that we keep everything kind of squared off and that kind of stuff. But what I will do is I'll go through and I'll mark as well so I don't lose that. So I have several marks along the way. Alright, the other thing that I'm going to do is, so far we've just been kind of sewing straight lines and that sort of stuff, but for these channels I'm actually going to do 3 lines so that there's actually 3 bars that run across this. I'm going to go towards the outside of this, so I'm going to pull this in a little bit. I'm going to go out to the very end first. I'm going to work my way in on this piece and space those out a little bit to help carry some of the weight. And we're ready to go. Now the next thing I'm going to do is a zigzag on this one instead of doing it the other way. So remember, you always want your foot up and you want your needle at the top position before you do it. Now I'm not going to do a super tight zigzag, but I am going to go over to like a medium one back and forth because I'm going to be doing several channels. Actually I will kind of do a tight zigzag since I'm going to do 3. I'm going to drop my needle. Remember, you want to go forward and back to kind of start everything and knot it down. I'm going to go down to my first real pin here to make sure that that's all good. Alright, and I'm just going to go forward a little bit. Good to go. Now I'm going to make 3 lines of these as I go through, and then I'll catch up with you when we get done with that. Alright, now that we've finished doing our channel and we covered a little bit of that, we'll go back and clean that up in a few minutes. We actually want to make a couple of continual loops, and this is what we're going to be connecting our hammock with to a couple of full circle rings, and we'll talk about how to connect that. Alright, so now that we've gone through and we've pulled all these through, there's a lot of videos on there exactly how to do it. It takes a little bit of time to kind of get all of that done, but we have our 2 continuous loops now. We've made 2 of these. They're about 8 inches long. You can see if we put it here, they're almost right at that with that measurement. We pulled right through it, 8 inches. So both of those are there. Now that we have these, we're actually going to attach, what I do is even before we run it through our actual channels that we created earlier, I'm going to actually put a couple of rings on this. So I'm going to use the thick end to go around my hammock, this side to go around my rings, or vice versa. So I've tried these for the first time. I usually use steel rings or climbing rings, but these are rated to 1,100 pounds each, so I figured 2 of them, this should have no problem holding me. They're a little bit lighter, and we'll cross our fingers. I've never used these before. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to put my knot in the end of this, and we're going to hold these on this end of my 2 rings. And if you notice, I got 2 rings that are red, and then I have 2 rings that are black. You don't have to do this, but the reason that I do it is so that I'll be able to know my head from my foot. So when I start, laying things out, I'll know. I like to have my feet a little bit higher because I tend to slide down in my hammock if I don't do that way. So I'll raise my feet just a little bit higher than my head, so it'll be off level. So I've just put these in a self-locking knot around here like this, and hold on, and that'll never come loose, especially after we put it into our hammock. So now you'll see I have the cord to go through my actual channel. I'll show you how I connect those, and then I have it to my connecting rings as well. Alright, so if we go back to our hammock, what you'll see is we have our sewn channels here. All I'm going to do is I'm going to clean these. I have a few extra threads. I'm going to clean some of this up. I'm going to go through here and just make this a little bit neater. Cut a lot of those threads that are hanging out there loose. And get that loose. Make it just look a little better. Clean that portion up some, so there's not a lot of stuff hanging out there loose. So I'm just going to walk through and do that across this first channel. Just going to clean that up. Alright. And then I'm going to run a lighter across the bottom of this just to kind of seal this up, because this stuff will continue to do this. So it's not going to be, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I'm not going to really burn this fabric, but I just want to get enough. I'm kind of sealing the end of that up. You don't want to put any holes in this, and it's just a little bit of overlap. I'm not doing this across the whole hammock. It's just that little seam right there that has some stuff there. I'm just going to go through and touch that up. If you get a little tea light, it works a little bit better, but for this I'm doing so little, it's just enough to kind of seal that end up. You'll see that. You can see there's some little stuff right here, and I'll just go across that. I'm not actually touching the piece that I'm going to be laying on it all. I don't want to weaken that fabric. This is just the folded over piece after we did our 3 channels. Alright, I'm going to do that across the whole thing until we get it so that a lot of those stray threads are kind of done and it's not going to unravel on us. So I'm going to try to get this so you can see it. So I have this camera in front of me, but I'm just going to start on one end. This is the first end of my channel. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start feeding this through, and you'll notice that I'll have this on one side. I'm just going to go up to the end of that, and then I'm going to start feeding it down onto the piece of cord. I'm just going to ravel it up at the end. It should make a loop for me. Now I know that this is the inside of my channel, so I want that to be the inside of my hammock as well. So I want it to wrap around towards me. So I'm making a loop around in my direction. It's a little more difficult with a camera between your hands, but hopefully you're seeing this. Just patiently kind of going through and pushing this through my channel. You'll see it just slowly going through. Almost done here. It's really important that you do the 3 lines in this channel, just to make sure that it holds extra tight. I do with something a little bit different. Some people will just wrap this thing around. So now we have our 2 sides, and then we have our gathered hammock. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm going in the right direction. So I'm going to pull that around in a circle. Now what we could do is we could just wrap this through here, make this a self-locking knot, have it come through in and of itself, and we're good to go. But I take it a little bit of extra step, because then you just have the channel. I want to bunch this up, so what I do is I actually pull this through like this, but I'll wrap it around some of the material as well. So instead of actually wrapping it there, you'll see this. See how that comes through? You can just pull the end of this thing and you have your channel, and that creates the end of your hammock. Just make sure that you have it going in the pattern that you want for the inside. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side real quick as well for you to see. And sorry, I know that's out of the way, so I just wanted you to see the end of that hammock. Alright. Alright, so the next piece we did, and I don't know if you can see this, but I'm going to try to get pretty close here so that you can picture it, is I've actually sewn 3 more, there's cross stitches that go down on both sides. You'll see it goes all the way through, and this is for my 1-inch webbing, and I just went to a hardware store. This thing's rated for 900 pounds or 880 pounds. Went ahead and put these on the end of these so that I can loop through. These are just my tree straps, but I made each one of these 15 feet, so they're more than long enough to go about through any tree and give me enough slack to go through my rings. I'll just pull this through. I can go around my tree, go back to the strap, and it works perfect. It's not a problem. Pulls through really quick. It's wide enough that it doesn't get caught on anything and it can flip. And then that'll give me my latching to go around a tree, and I'll wrap that a few times for if it's a smaller tree or whatever. Make sure I don't damage the bark. So anyway, there's my really simple connection to my tree, and then I run it through my rings. Now, if you give me a few minutes, I have a setup in the house. I can show you how we do this. Alright guys, I walked through this one time. I want to make sure that we see how we have everything hung up here. So first of all, we have our webbing, and our webbing comes down from a connection. Now naturally this would be a tree, not to where we're looking right now, but this would go into a tree. And if we come down here, here's our rings, and it's actually attached to our webbing and strapped through, and then to our hammock. So here's our hammock, and if you look right now, we're running at about a 45-degree angle. You'll see it here. Now I like to hang mine at a little higher angle, so I lay a little bit flatter. Some people like to have it a little bit less, like at a 30-degree. One of the ways that you can check this, if you're looking for a 30-degree, all you have to do is look at hold your fingers out, look, is it at a 30-degree? You'll see I'm a little bit off here. I would actually want to pull it up a little bit. If I wanted to actually do this, all I gotta do is take this, I can pull, and it'll actually adjust it out. Now I only have one hand here because I'm dealing with the camera, but you can see I can just adjust this up. It'll adjust the angle for me, and I'll be good to go. Alright, so here we go. We're in our hammock. Stretch this out a little bit. Get down in here, and you'll see. There we go. Pretty flat lay, if I say so myself. And we're all good. And those straps hold you just fine. Now, if you're staying overnight or you're doing anything, or hard surfaces or whatever, I would tie a knot in those. But otherwise, we're good to go. See, we have our black ones at the top. This is our head. That's our foot. We're good to go. All comfy. So, here we go for our homemade hammock. Anyway, I'll get in touch with you guys later. Have a good night. Talk to you later.